Okay, so my name's Molly Tobias, and I'm going to talk about the Common Core State Standards and Assessment. The first thing we learned was that there's four types of assessment: educational, vocational, psychological, and medical. Obviously, we're focusing on educational, but I thought it was really interesting because I'd never really thought of assessments like with other types of jobs or other fields rather than education. So I thought that was very interesting. And then the assessments were thought to have originated in China, which they used to test their citizens on like their beliefs and all that. And then it was eventually brought to the U.S. Once it was brought to or before it was brought to the U.S., businesses used to have to teach their new employees ELA and math skills and just basic reading and writing skills that they weren't learning throughout their educational experience. So they started becoming more invested in the education systems and becoming more interested in like spending money for high schools and etc. So they started putting more money in, which kind of like started like an eye opener for the U.S., I guess. And the presidency at the time and the government put in kind of a little initiative to start bettering our educational system. So everybody started becoming more involved in education, which in turn created a better system for our schools. The test began as oral tests between the teacher and student, but then in 1845 it changed to the first written test. One thing that I thought was most interesting through all of our readings was I noticed that the assessment process is always changing and always being further developed. So right now with the Common Core State Standards, the big question is kind of like the chicken and the egg, like which came first, instruction or assessment. And I think it's very interesting to think that assessment came first because most teachers that you would ask, I think, would say instruction, which is what I would have said about a year ago. But it is true, if you don't know what you're testing on, then how do you know what to teach? And in my resident year, I kind of figured that out firsthand. Teaching straight from the book, and then you go for the assessment, and a lot of the students were like, oh, well, we didn't learn this. So it is very important to start with the assessment and then teach according to what the students are going to need to know. But with the whole constantly improving and changing, that's why the Common Core State Standards were implemented for the U.S. It's allowing students, or requiring students, I guess, to build deeper understandings of all these concepts that they're learning in school. So in math, for example, it used to be just solve the problem and write the answer, but now they're required to explain how they got the answer, explain why, and not only are they awarded points for their correct answer, but they're awarded points for their process and their explanation. So maybe they got the wrong answer, but they had the correct process. The students would be awarded points for that. And I think that's extremely important because not only is it building problem solvers, but it's allowing the students to create such a higher level of understanding of these concepts that they will be able to take these skills further with them in life rather than cramming for a test, memorizing the answers, and then forgetting it. So it's building really good, 21st century problem solving skills. The Common Core State Standards are also a really great improvement to our educational system, not only for the deeper understanding of the concepts, but since they're vertically aligned kindergarten through high school. So that means that each year they're building off the previous year and maybe just taking that concept one step further or building a little bit deeper of knowledge into that concept. So that means that the students have like goals that are more attainable because it's building off prior knowledge. So that just means that the teachers can look at previous years and see what the students learned in previous years and then build off it in turn. Some benefits of the Common Core State Standards are that it identifies, or not benefits of Common Core state standards, benefits of assessments, is that they identify strengths and weaknesses of students. So not only do they just test their knowledge of the concepts visited throughout that year, but they also can identify, if the student is super, super good in writing and explaining, or maybe they're far above in math. But they can also identify weaknesses. So sometimes students are identified as a special needs student, or that they have, some type of learning disability through these assessments that are given. These assessments also hold teachers and schools accountable. So it's not just, just a test from the book that they're giving. It's a statewide test and kind of like a benchmark, so they know where their students should be and if they're keeping their students on track or if they're letting them fall behind, if they're teaching kind of above grade level. But so it also just keeps teachers and schools very accountable. So that is pretty much it, and thank you for watching.